Well, let's go ahead and get started.
All right.
So welcome everyone, and welcome to my wonderful friend Jill Chow. This is Reinventing Greatness, interviews with inspiring leaders, and I'm so excited to bring my good friend Jill Chow to us today. So welcome, Jill.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so here we're still kind of in the middle of the pandemic, towards the end of the pandemic. I don't know, but one of the
We
things I
hope.
got, yeah, right. So we're just prepared for whatever, and I've been having fun just bringing some really interesting folks onto these onto these interviews so that we can learn more about you, Jill, and others, and think about your path and think about what aspirational goals we may have that we may want to pursue still, no matter where you are in your life. So we'll just jump down into that path. But first, I want to get started with your introduction. But let me just back up for a second. I get so excited. For folks who don't know me, I'm Shari Goodwin. I'm a business strategist, leadership coach, author, speaker, passionate horse lover, animal lover, reinvented a number of times. So enough about me. We're going to jump into Jill. And Jill, I have your bio here. So I'm going to go ahead and read some of the highlights here because it's so impressive. It's so interesting. Here we go. Jill Chow is Vice President of Communications and Outreach for ACDIVOCA, which is an international development nonprofit organization. And she develops and leads strategic internal and external communications. Her team's work is focused on increasing the organization's visibility and value by highlighting and promoting their impact around the world. Jill has enjoyed a 30-year career in communications and organizational effectiveness across a variety of industries. And one of the things I actually find most interesting is that you are a self-taught artist and painter, and I want to hear more about that in a minute, and that you picked up painting as a child, and you actually pursued it full-time as a profession by moving down to Key West for a little while. So we'll talk about that and how you're kind of using art now in your work.
Great.
Yeah, so let's see. Prior to joining ACDIVOCA in 2019, last year, she served as Director of Services Communications for the Association of American Medical Colleges. And Jill holds a BA in Communications from Purdue University and an MA in Public Relations from Ball State University, as well as a certificate in Organizational Development from the NTL Institute. So welcome, Jill.
Thank you, Shari. Glad to be here.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think what first brought us together several years ago now was horses, right?
Yeah. I was, I had done a lot of reading, and I grew up with horses, and I had been doing a lot of thinking about how they really are such wonderful reflectors of ourselves and help us to grow. And I had gone through a coaching training program and I'm a reader, and I like to do self-help and growth, and that's just kind of how I always am. And I was doing some reading about equine assisted coaching, and when I got here, and I had been volunteering at the Humane Society of Fairfax County, taking care of the horses because my husband was afraid I would bring all the dogs home, but the horses wouldn't fit in the car. But then again, I did bring a dog home. Anyway, and I was, working with them, and I thought, oh my gosh, I really wonder if there's somebody around here that's doing this kind of coaching. I just wanted to explore it a little bit more to see, if there was a future there for me, either as a client or, someday as a practitioner. So, and I Googled, and there you are.
Yay for Google. Oh, yep. And I remember the first day we met, and this was a while back because I've had the good fortune of knowing you for a little while now, as you've reinvented, and it's just so beautiful to see where you are now. And you have 2 dogs. I'm forgetting what's the makeup there?
Yeah, 2 dogs and a cat who is essentially the 3rd dog.
Oh,
Yes.
awesome.
Yep.
So let's start with what you're doing now, because this is really interesting. I know earlier this year before the pandemic, I was so worried about you because I thought, oh my gosh, she's not going to be able to get back in the country because you were on travel, right?
Yeah, I was in Colombia. Yeah, when all of this just started, late February. Me and one of my team members were in Colombia visiting and actually taking some training with one of our projects down there. And yeah, it's so weird because we didn't think anything of it. I was getting, messages from home saying, we need to put out a statement about this, and we couldn't see the news. We had Colombian TV, so we didn't know anything that was going on, and the Wi-Fi was pretty spotty. So it wasn't until we got back that I thought, oh my gosh, we could have been, quarantined in Colombia for who knows how long. So not that I would have minded part of that, because it's a beautiful place and the people were fantastic. But yeah, it was a little scary.
So what in general, what's your main work that you're doing? I know you're doing a little bit of traveling, doing communications. What are you doing now? How would you describe that?
Right now, my team supports the work of our group of projects, which we've got from any given, at any given time, there's numbers of projects, 50, between 50 and 60 projects going on all around the world. And they're really designed to help communities in developing areas either recover from some kind of a shock or trauma if there's been a natural disaster, some kind of economic shift, some kind of conflict, for example. In Colombia, we're doing a lot of work with folks down there to help them help themselves in really manage to recover from the conflicts that have plagued them for a long time. So the organization is amazing. We don't walk in with an out-of-the-box solution to anything. We really take kind of a consulting and coaching approach. We go into every project we're in and really figure out what's really going on and talk to the people and work with the people there in those communities to help them address the things that are working or not working for them, and manage gaps in the system to help them improve their lives and improve their livelihoods. So it's just really an inspiring organization to work for, and I'm just thrilled every day to support the work of these wonderful projects.
That's so awesome. It's really, it's interesting. Were you aware of them before you applied to the organization?
I was not, and I actually was referred to them by a fellow coach and consultant who knows the COO, who is now my supervisor, and so I did some research, on them before I went in for my consulting and engagement, and I said, oh my goodness, this is just an amazing organization. And then once I met the team and all the folks that work there, I was sold. It's an incredible group of people with great hearts and brilliant minds.
So am I hearing that correctly? You went in as a consultant first, is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is part of the reinvention space?
Sure, it really is.
Right? So you go in as a consultant. Now, did you have your eye on a full-time job, or did they have an opening? How did that work?
I did not. I did not have my eye on a full-time job. They had me come in because the CEO was fairly new. And so he was really assessing overall the organization and trying to figure out, what was working there. And he and the COO both said, we don't really know a lot about strategic communications and what strategic communications is really all about. And so they spoke to my friend and said, do you happen to know anybody who has expertise in this area who could come in and help us figure out, are we going in the right direction? What could we be doing better and differently? And that's how I got introduced to the organization and ended up, getting hired into this role after doing a consulting engagement and giving them my recommendations based on my experience, and meeting the team, which an amazing group of people. They really, I can't say too much about my team because they're fantastic. And so when I got to know them and I got to know the organization, I said, look, I'm happy to help support in any way I can. And lo and behold, it just it happened like, well, what can you step in here and help us lead this group? And I'm honored to have, it worked out perfectly. I couldn't have asked for a better situation. Every other job I've ever had, I've had to go look for. And this is the first one that actually came to me, and I feel like that's why it's right.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So, okay, so this is begging the question. So, did you shift something in you? I mean, we always talk about alignment, aligning your head, your heart, your gut, your values, your strengths, all of this stuff, plus the energy with the horses, energetic alignment, meaning with the horses, it's around, for folks who don't work with horses or are not aware of this, really the energy that you put out is being received by everyone around you. And with a horse, it's really cool because they'll reflect it back to you. And if it's a positive or neutral, loving kind of energy, they usually feel safe and they'll either do nothing or they might come to you. But if it's a fear-based, kind of competitive, weird, off-based energy, they'll start to move away from you, or they may get even angry or whatever. People do the same thing.
Yep.
So I'm wondering about you, you said that this opportunity kind of unfolded for you. And so was there anything that you did, if you're willing to share, differently on this job search than maybe on some ones you had before?
Yeah, I mean, at first I really wasn't even looking at making it a full-time job. I really did not even have that in my mind. I was taking a break and, needed a little bit of downtime before I decided what I was going to do next. And when this came up as a consulting engagement, I really took it on as I put my consultant hat on instead of my applicant hat. And I feel like that was a key shift for me in terms of the way I engaged with the organization, because as a consultant, in retrospect, I'm much more authentic in my approach to things, because they're relying on me for my honest opinion in order to, guide them in the right direction. And so from the very beginning, I wasn't trying to sell them on anything. They hired me for my expertise. And, in certain cases, I couldn't sugarcoat. I just had to say, this is what I'm seeing. You're the decision makers. You take it, however you want. But so I could be completely upfront and honest, as opposed to in the past when I was looking for jobs, I was selling myself and not really trying to figure out what they wanted me to be. Which is a dangerous place, and I think a place that a lot of women, I think, get ourselves into is, let me shapeshift and become somebody that I'm not. And instead, in this role, I feel like even as I've transitioned into an employee, I still feel that agency because I started, this is how they know me, and I've really stepped into being who I am as opposed to who I think I'm supposed to be. So that's been a huge transformation and a big shift, and has been extremely freeing for me. And, in retrospect, I wish I could have taken that to a lot of other places, but we are where we are, and I'm glad I am here now.
That's fantastic, Jill. Congratulations. I mean, it really takes a lot to be able to get over that ego and the expectation. And there's that people pleaser piece where, what are they looking for? How can I look good for them or to them? And is it okay? And it comes down to the am I good enough kind of thing that many women especially struggle with. Sometimes their whole entire life, it keeps it flares up here and there. It's like, what? I thought I was over that. What happened?
Yeah.
So
no. Yeah, we struggle. It still pops. It still comes up, and I have to, it's something to really have self-manage all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go back to your art. Are you still, well, I know the answer to this question. I know you're still doing art, because I just saw this amazing thing you did, I think for your brother, right? It was incredible. So tell us a little bit about your background in art. How did you get started, and how does it play in your life right now?
Sure. So as a kid, I was always drawing, writing poetry and illustrating to go along with it, and those kind of things. And then, as tends to happen as we get older, that creative part of my life kind of got put to the side, because we had to be serious now. It's time to be serious. Don't be messing around with any of that creative stuff. And then I was actually getting ready to go through a divorce, and it was really, really hard. I was still young, and just was feeling some really crummy things. And at one point later in my marriage, I had said to my ex-husband, I think I'm going to take up watercolor painting. I think that might be cool. And he said, oh, you'll never be able to do that. You don't have the patience for it. And so as the divorce started happening, I was like, watch me. And I will tell you, I mean, I used it, I made some seriously ugly art, ugly art. But sometimes, you know, for me, it was about an outlet. I was painting from, you know, what came out on the outside was really what I was feeling on the inside. And putting it out there, it was a really freeing process for me. And I eventually moved from watercolor to acrylic because it's much more forgiving medium. Watercolor, you can't, you know, you've got to wait for drying and all those kind of things. And with acrylic, I could just slap things around and really get, you know, really get the energy out of me and into the work. And it was extremely freeing. And I did a lot of they were abstract, but they were human forms. So I would think, how does this feel for me? If I were going to put my body in the position of what it was, how would it feel? You know, and I had a lot of, you know, I had a whole series of, you know, people trapped in the canvas and how that, you know, it contorted into lots of different shapes and just feeling trapped in their lives. And it really helped me process a lot of the things that I was going through across, gosh, a number of years, just, you know, ups and downs and all of that. And it's been, I've kind of, you know, it's funny because now that my life has stabilized a little bit more, I'm doing it more for fun and less for therapy. But it's still a nice outlet just to kind of put yourself in a different part of your brain and not have to always be problem solving, you know, and just free flow and watch colors. And it's very therapeutic even when I'm just doing it for fun now.
That's so interesting. And you had a stint, as I mentioned in the introduction, when you went down to Key West. So where were you in your life then, and what was going on for you?
That was a whole nother thing. I was born and raised in Indiana. And I was at that point living in central Indiana, kind of northeast of Indianapolis, working in Indianapolis. And had just been, this was after my divorce, and had just been kind of through a series of unfulfilling relationships. I had been in the same job for 10 years. And I really, my painting was really taking off. And I thought, and I was getting lots of good comments from people I was sharing it with. I had friends who wanted to come, you know, they wanted to buy some, and they said, you should really do something with this. And I looked into kind of getting into some galleries and places down in the Indianapolis area. And before I would even show them a piece of my work, they would say, well, can you send us your CV? I was like, well, I'm not a trained artist. Oh, well, then never mind. We only want someone with an MFA. You know, we can't even look at your work. So I was like, well, that's frustrating, you know, and so I actually went to Key West to celebrate my birthday all by myself. I love doing things alone. I like taking solo trips, and the energy there, the freedom, all of the galleries just really spoke to me. And I thought, you know what, I'm just chuck it all and move down here and see what happens. And, you know, it didn't happen that quickly. I had to sell a house and all those kind of things, but I ended up moving down there, and you know, the thought process was really, if I didn't do it, it was scary, but I thought if I didn't do it, I would be in Indiana in a series of dead-end relationships and unfulfilling work and not pursue my art and who knows what else, and I needed to take that chance for myself, and it was not what I thought it was going to be, which of course nothing ever is. But it was better and worse than I could have imagined. And I wouldn't change a thing. It was great in the end. Yeah.
So courageous, you know, to just speak up and go down there. I've been down to Key West many times, and there's some interesting characters down there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. One of the things that, you know, I would tell people is in Indiana, I was always the weirdest person in the room. And in Key West, I was never the weirdest person in the room, even when I was alone. So.
That's great. That's great. I just remember going to, was it the Hemingway house? And he has
the six-toed cats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yep. Wow, what an interesting adventure. So what would you say, you know, from that journey, what did you learn about yourself?
Gosh. A whole lot. I think first and foremost, you know, I'm super proud that I actually took the leap to do it. I learned that I have grit, that I can, I can decide to do something and make it happen. I was able to, get myself into some galleries, make some sales, also hold down a full-time job while I was there, and do some consulting work on the side, just because pay down there is not equal to the cost of housing and living down there. So, that I'm resourceful. I think that's one of the main things that I really learned is nobody did this for me. Nobody helped me do this. This was something that I did independently on my own, with my own guts, my own money, and that I could really manifest it. I decided, and I kind of visualized it, and I made it happen. And from being down there, it was also a lot of learning about how to be with myself, because a lot of it, I've always liked to be alone, but it wasn't the same as when I was there, because it's a very transient community. So a lot of the people that I would meet wouldn't be there very long. So I wouldn't have a lot of, I had some very close friends, but they weren't around for very long. So I really had to learn how to sit with myself and be with myself and make peace with myself. And I think ultimately that's why I ended up leaving for economic reasons, because it was just so hard to maintain. But also because I think at that certain point when I left, I had learned what I needed to learn from being there, and so that I can count on myself, and that I will be okay no matter what life throws my way. And if I choose it or if I don't choose it, in that case I chose it, but there were lots of challenges that I didn't choose, but that I was okay. I made it okay, and I could rely on myself. I think that's the main thing that I carry with me to this day, is that I was brave enough to take a chance, and I ended up okay.
Super powerful insight, to know that no matter what happens, you can rely on yourself and that you'll be okay. And that's, the school of hard knocks. And that doesn't come easy. You have to take chances and get out there and put it out there, put yourself out there, and take the risk of getting smacked down.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because I am not typically a risk taker, at least not in the traditional sense. So just doing that, I think, was a surprise to myself as well as everybody who knew me, because I am very much security oriented. But there was something about that. I thought, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I don't know how, but I'm going to be. And I was.
It's so funny, how we see ourselves, and you see yourself as not really a risk taker.
Yeah.
And I mean, you think back, you got to watch this interview because you'd be like, oh, I'm taking all kinds of risks. Because I see you kind of as this adventuresome person who's out there investigating, curious, gets knowledgeable, puts it to work, tries it out, adds some value to the world, and then it's like, okay, maybe I'll shift it over here and see, that's what I see. Plus this incredible wealth of creativity.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely watch this back and see if I can see something else. It's, we walk around in our own heads all the time. It's hard to know. I know how I think of myself, but that doesn't mean that's how I show up for the rest of the world, which I think is probably a good thing.
That's so funny. So what would you say, and this is kind of a hard question because I don't even know how I would totally answer it, but, as of right now, what would you say your purpose is?
Boy, that's a tough one. Because it changes all the time for me, I think. And I feel like right now, my purpose is to listen a lot, and I've been really trying to advocate more in lots of ways, given the state of our world, and starting that by listening, but to find my place and where I think my voice and my energy will make the biggest impact. I have no idea what that is right now, but I feel like my purpose at the moment is to just kind of stay open and see what comes to me from that place of what's going to be helpful for the people that I'm in contact with, for my community, that can maybe make it or have a ripple effect in other places.
So when you're listening, when you're in the space of listening, what are you listening for?
I'm a pattern person. So I'm really kind of, I tend to collect information, take things in from lots of different places, and then at a certain point, it just kind of, a pattern will emerge. So for me, listening is more than just hearing, right? More than auditory. It's really taking a pulse of what's going on around in the world, in the community, with my team, with other people that I have come in contact with, and internalizing all of those things and seeing what kind of a pattern will arise from it. That perhaps a lot of times, if I see a pattern, then I can see a path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's always fascinating to me to see what people are watching, what they're observing, what the perspective is, and then where you choose to play, if you choose to play. Where you want to spend your time and your energy, and certainly you have a very busy job and a home life and all of that. So for folks that are thinking about making a change, reinventing, maybe even reinventing in situ, meaning I call that reinventing in situ, when you reinvent in place, meaning you may not leave your job or whatever, and some do leave and start new things. What advice would you give for folks?
I think the thing that has helped me the most across my life is developing self-awareness, really learning about yourself. That's one way that you can make a tremendous transformation without even really, having to change a whole lot. It's just turning inward and watching the habitual thoughts, watching the things that get in your way. Let's look at where do you want to be versus where you are now, and what can you do in yourself to have the impact to get you where you want to be. What is it that's holding you back inside from becoming that which you want to become? And change, and also to not change. It seems scary and hard, and it is, but we always survive it. We're in the middle of change all the time anyway. So if you're gonna make a change, make it your change. Do what you can do in yourself to take as much of that change and shape it for yourself as you can, and give yourself some grace in the process too, because it's going to be bumpy. Yeah. And it's not going to turn out, you can't have control over the whole process, but if you have awareness about it, you can ride it a lot easier than if you are trying to hold on really tight and force it. Like with a horse, right? If you're tight and you're trying to, make the horse do what you want it to do, you're going to meet with a lot of resistance. Whereas, it may not do exactly what you want it to do all the time, but if you're loose and go with the flow, it's going to be a much more pleasant ride, and you never know what you might discover along the way.
That's such a powerful metaphor, and actually a physical reality for me as of yesterday.
Oh, no.
So really, really good advice. That whole self-awareness, self-discovery, kind of just peeling back the layers. I think it's a lifelong journey. I know it is. Myself,
same.
I think for me, I started when I was maybe 35 or in my 30s, probably before that, but didn't really know it. And I always thought, self-help, what's that? That's for those people. Well, I'm totally that person. Like reading everything out there. But so what are you working on now? I mean, what's kind of you've got your work, and are there certain projects you'd like to highlight or anything that's coming?
The thing that I'm most excited about that I'm working on right now that has nothing to do with even painting or the work I'm doing with my job is writing my father-in-law's memoir, taking his memoir and writing it into a semi-fictional accounting, but he did us a beautiful service of having written the story of his life that we didn't even know he wrote before, until he passed, and we just happened to stumble across it going through some paperwork. And just an incredible man, an amazing, served, the end of World War II, was a paratrooper in Korea, and then was with the CIA in Vietnam, and the story of his upbringing as a poor child growing up in Hilo, Hawaii was I mean, it's just an incredible story, and I'm honored to be able to try and tell it in a way that hopefully people will engage with when I'm ready.
Wow, Jill, that is so exciting. And I love how you're declaring it to the world right here. So
Yep,
congratulations.
It's coming. It will be coming. It'll take a while, but it's coming.
Yep, wait, that's so fantastic. And it's, the thought, the inspiration, and then you manifest that reality and you're working on it. And, oh my gosh, how exciting. I can't wait. Can't wait to read it. Can't wait to hear more about it as you continue on this project, because that's awesome. So
Thank you.
So anything else you'd like to share with our folks today with respect to maybe one or two key leadership skills, tips? Is there anything on the side of leadership? So you've done a lot of work in leadership. I'm curious to hear if there's one thing you want folks to take away on the leadership side.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I see myself as a servant leader. So for me, it's all about removing obstacles for other people to be able to get what they need to get done. And part of that also is helping lift them up when they don't feel, quite as confident as I know, as awesome as they are, that they should be confident, right? And I think a lot of that for me starts with taking my own ego out of it. I don't have, when I'm looking at a leadership role, I really look at the responsibility I have as a leader to help guide and shape, but not force. And people can get things done the way they need to get them done. I welcome pushback and feedback. I think getting feedback as a leader is really important, and a lot of people are afraid to do it. In my mind, being open to that and being vulnerable enough to say, look, I just made a really crappy decision. Own the things that you don't do well either. I mean, to me, being myself, 100% myself with my team has probably been one of the best decisions that I've ever made. When I first started to become a leader, I thought, I don't want to put on a hat and say, okay, I'm a leader now. These are the things I have to do. This is who I am. And I lead from that place of authenticity and curiosity and humility, and really trying to be of service to whatever it is we're trying to accomplish as a group. So I don't know if that answered your question or if that helped anyone, but that's my approach to it. It's so much work to try to be something that you're not. And people the leaders that I have followed in my life have been the ones that have been fallible and funny and own the things that they did wrong, and were willing to, have a little bit of an argument with me about something, and we both ended up the better for it. It wasn't a power thing. It was, we're in this together. Let's work on this together. They were part of the team. So that's what I have tried to model in my leadership, and hopefully, take it up a notch or two. So that's my approach.
Well, that's beautiful. I mean, authentic leadership is what I'm hearing you say, and you are absolutely one of the most authentic people I know, and I'm so grateful to know you. And thank you for bringing your entire self to everything that you do. I mean, that's you show up fully. There's not these false layers or any of that. It's like, here you are, and you're willing to help, and you're willing to share, and you're willing to be vulnerable and jump in and lead in whatever capacity is needed at the moment. So thank you for all of that, and for being vulnerable, and for talking with me today. I could talk with you all day long. Thank you so much for sharing, and we will include your website information, contact information on this video, so folks who want to get in touch with Jill or learn more about the organization, you can check out the website. And thank you so much, Jill. It's been an absolute honor and delight to talk with you today. Really, really.
Thank you, Shari, so much. Absolutely. It's been my pleasure, and I am more than happy to connect with anybody who has questions or just wants to chit chat. I am a connector. So if you see anybody that I'm connected to that you want to be connected to, let me know.
Perfect. Thank you, Jill. You're amazing. Love you
Thank
lots.
you. So are you.
Okay.
Love you too.
Bye.